welcome everyone. My name is Sujata and I work with Manufacturing Today magazine as the editor. Thank you for taking the time today to join as we talk about data-led digital transformation strategies for an intelligent supply network, how and why it matters. Digital is a key priority for most supply chain leaders, but less than half have defined or planned to implement a supply chain digital transformation roadmap. Many supply chains have been too slow to react. They are still developing the foundational physical capabilities required to compete today, let alone develop, test, deploy, and scale digital innovations effectively. You will live from this webinar with expert insight into not only how supply chain digital transformation is proven to drive growth, mitigate risk, and optimize cost, but also why strong alignment between business and supply chain strategies required to succeed. Allow me to give you a brief introduction to what we are at about manufacturing today. Manufacturing today is part of the larger group, which is ITP Media, which caters to around 8 industry verticals. And Manufacturing Today is one of the premier magazines in India, catering to the manufacturing sectors, where we provide insights, case studies, and the latest developments in the technology from the manufacturing sector. So before we begin this webinar, we have with us Mark Morley, who is the Senior Director, Product Marketing, Dex Business Network, who will share a short presentation on this subject. Mark is a strategic B2B marketing professional with over 25 years of experience working for global blue chip information technology companies. He's considered a thought leader and innovative marketer in cloud integration, supply chain, manufacturing, automotive, and disruptive digital technologies, including the Internet of Things, blockchain, and machine learning. Mark is renowned as someone who can quickly understand the customer's business and extensive experience presenting to the C-suite, identifying pain points, and recommending suitable IT and software technologies. May I welcome Mark? Mark, over to you.
Thank you very much. Well, hello, everyone. As the introduction said, my name is Mark Morley, and I want to take you through a very brief introduction, really to set the scene for the discussion panel that we'll be going through very shortly. And this initial set of slides is going to really introduce the topic around data integration, and also how insights can be derived from this data as it moves across the extended business ecosystem. Now, we know today that there are many different disruptions taking place around the world, and even in a post-COVID environment, supply chain leaders are restructuring their business to improve delivery of goods, but also at the same time to help accelerate the adoption of new IT technologies. In particular, the ability to accelerate digital transformation projects to move to the cloud. Many companies during COVID, and also other disruptions that you see in the top half of this screen, have really struggled to obtain visibility into their supply chain operations. What's happening around the world? Where is my shipment? What's the condition of those goods as they move around different logistics networks around the world? But also there are other compelling events in the market that are driving supply chain leaders, CIOs, to invest in their infrastructure. So I think job number one for many supply chain leaders and CIOs today is to certainly accelerate their move to the cloud. And certainly job number two is to improve security across their supply chain network, and also that IT infrastructure to support the movement and the collaboration of information. So whether you're a company looking to accelerate digital transformation, whether you're accelerating your move to a cloud-based ERP platform such as S/4HANA, whether you're being forced to adopt new mandates from regional governments around sustainability and environmental, social, and governance related regulations, electric vehicle adoption. We know that there's going to be a convergence between the high-tech and the automotive industry to support the exponential growth of the electric vehicle market moving forwards. Regional compliance mandates, for example, for electronic invoicing. And then finally, embracing ISO 20022, which is a standard used in the financial services sector. So irrespective of which compelling event your business is trying to address, key to the success of navigating your way through these events is how you manage, interpret, and collaborate on data across the supply chain. Now, of course, many manufacturing operations today, they're literally leveraging a river of data, maybe a tsunami of data, whether it's demand data coming in from point of sale information from a retail store, forecasting data, inventory data, enterprise data, and even device data when you look at IoT connected devices and all the sensor information that's coming off of there. If you want to be able to interpret that data and be able to optimize back-end business processes. So there's a lot of data basically, which is what this slide is trying to illustrate. And companies that can interpret this data, can optimize business processes using this data, are really the businesses that are going to grow more quickly in the industry today. So AI, machine learning is certainly a growing area. I remember back in 2010, when every CIO was rushing to adopt cloud, mobile, and big data. And certainly, as you'll see in a moment, cloud is one of the more popular technologies that nearly every company is trying to adopt quickly, because they appreciate when they do adopt cloud-based technologies, then they will have the flexibility and scalability to support whatever the market condition is at that time and also in the future. Now, to try and get an idea of what's going on in the market today, we undertook a study with the analyst firm IDC around digital supply chain maturity. And this was all about looking at how companies around the world, in North America, Europe, and in APAC, were adopting digital technologies to help digitize their end-to-end supply chain. Because the more information you could digitize, the more data that you can potentially derive insights from. So this was a cross-industry study across manufacturing, retail, consumer goods, and life sciences. And we are literally just about to finish publishing this particular report, and we will make sure that every attendee attending the webinar today will get a copy of this report when it's completed in the next week. So hopefully the next 2-3 weeks time, you'll actually receive a copy of this post-event. Now, I just wanted to focus on some of the key findings from the study that relate to AI and machine learning, because they tie into the theme of this particular webinar around data. And as you can see from this particular slide, cloud, shown by the light green or the teal colored bars, is certainly the most popular disruptive technology that companies are accelerating their adoption today. And also the next most popular one is AI and machine learning. And interestingly, if you look on the left-hand side of this slide around the Asia Pacific region, you can see that the adoption of AI and machine learning is growing faster in the Asia Pacific region than Western Europe and even in North America, just slightly, as you can see through those bar charts. One interesting observation before I move to the next slide is that IoT is relatively low here. And that seems quite interesting. You know, IoT is a very disruptive technology that every company is trying to adopt. And I would say, looking at this, is that it's actually related to the hardware, the sensors, the infrastructure to connect to devices. So that's really a reflection here. I think the actual true meaning here is that the data and the sensor data coming off of IoT connected devices is actually reflected in the AI and machine learning column that you see or columns that you see on this slide. So the IoT bars that you see on the slide are related to the infrastructure, the hardware, and the actual sensor data is actually wrapped up, I think, in the AI and machine learning columns that you see on this slide. But we also looked at control towers and even collaboration technology as well, to sort of get a broader view of what companies are looking at in terms of their future strategies. So certainly cloud is the most popular technology here today. And as I said earlier on, it provides the flexibility and scalability that companies need today. Now, what are the benefits of adopting AI and machine learning, specifically in the supply chain? Now, you can see at the top there around improved product quality, but I wanted to highlight the increased agility, improved sustainability outcomes, increased visibility and traceability shown on the left-hand side. So being able to leverage data to analyze it and then optimize supply chain processes on the back end, whether that's inventory management, whether it's warehouse management, or even optimizing logistics flows, the ability to take all of the data from the logistics network and being able to optimize those logistics flows and even run potentially what-if scenarios across the logistics networks. If you need to onboard new trading partners, new suppliers, what's the impact going to be across the whole network? You can run a simulation within an AI machine learning environment to actually work out what that effect is going to be. But then when you look at how companies are using different types of analytics, whether it's basic analytics represented by the dark blue bars, or whether it's using advanced analytics aligned with supply chain metrics. So for example, when we talk about KPIs and supply chain metrics, we're looking for perfect orders, number of days outstanding, how quickly have shipments been delivered, what about shipment fulfillment? So knowing those KPIs is incredibly important because you can then optimize the process and maybe even use that information as part of the contract renewal with those suppliers in the network as well. So you can see here the most popular use of analytics at this moment in time is using advanced analytics aligned with those supply chain metrics. But then you can see close to that is using AI and machine learning, because once companies have got this data, they can leverage it in many different ways and almost provide predictive or prescriptive insights into what's going on across the business. And I think particularly in the aerospace sector, in the industrial manufacturing sector, predictive maintenance is a key capability that many companies are trying to leverage, and data underpins those kind of predictive maintenance strategies. So it's becoming more and more important around the world today in terms of the use of data. Now, in terms of what we do here at OpenText Business Network, we help to digitize information across the supply chain. So rather than paper-based orders or invoices or advanced ship notices, we digitize all of that information across the supply chain. And that digitized information can also be fed into an AI and machine learning environment. So companies can get insights in terms of their ordering process, their inventory management process, and also the shipping information related to every shipment that's moving around the world. And to sort of explain that in a bit more detail, I just put this final slide up just to sort of summarize really, because we process 33 billion transactions per year across our network, which is a huge amount. We've got some of the world's largest supply chains leveraging our network to connect to all of their trading partners and suppliers located all over the world. Now, collectively, that represents the 33 billion transactions equates to $12 trillion in network commerce. So that is equivalent again to 12% of today's global commerce around the world. Now, if you'd look at this as a comparison by GDP, we would actually be, by global commerce, we would actually be the third largest country worldwide purely by the amount of commerce that's moving across our network. And keep in mind that that commerce is providing the lifeblood of today's economy. It's allowing companies to connect digitally with their supply chains. So if you can derive insights from that data, and hence the topic now that we're going to be discussing within our panel, the ability to derive the insights is an incredibly powerful capability. So with that, I'm going to hand back to Sujathu to provide the introduction to the discussion panel.
That was a very thought-provoking presentation. I know there will be a lot of questions that you might want to ask. I want Mark to address. We'll take the questions during the Q&A session, so feel free to type them into the chat box. We will answer your questions by the end of the session, and the moderator, Vijay, will collect all the most upvoted questions so we can answer them for you at the end of the session. And we will also have a poll to know your opinion on the subject matter. Also, don't worry about making notes immediately, since we will post the session's recording on Manufacturing Today's website. Now, allow me to introduce you to the global experts we have on our panel, data-led digital transformation strategies for the intelligent supply network. We have with us Amol. He is the Managing Director and Head of Operations, GE Aviation Multimodal Facility in India, and board member of GE India Industrial Private Limited. Amol Nagar has nearly 2 decades of experience in manufacturing operations, global sourcing, and supply chain across automotive, engineering, and aviation industries. He was instrumental in taking up various initiatives from the startup stage to best-in-class maturity levels in new product development, setting up green and brownfield manufacturing facilities, strategic global sourcing, and designing supply chain solutions, building organizational capabilities with track record for achieving some of the most challenging transformation initiatives in the industry. We have Vinod Khole, who is a Senior Vice President and Group Chief Information Officer of Varroc. Vinod is responsible for strategizing and introducing new advanced IT technologies. He strives to develop more creative solutions. Vinod has had a dynamic career with 26 years of experience with leading companies, during which he has held several positions of responsibility. Vinod has spoken at several events on digital transformation. We have Mr. Satyagopan Krishnan, who is the Senior Vice President, Ashok Leyland. He started his career with Bajaj Auto on the Kawasaki 4S motorcycle engine localization program, and later the 4S Champion motorcycle, which turned Bajaj into a big two-wheeler company today. He then moved on to Mahindra and Mahindra farm equipment sector and worked as product engineer in the engines department, executed Tier 1 emission-related projects for USA and has the credit of development of first turbocharged tractor engine. Thomas Leeson, he's a senior industry marketing strategist and manufacturing at the OpenText. Tom is an engineer by trade, a mathematician by education. He has over 40 years of experience working in the manufacturing sector, first within the aerospace, automotive, and discrete manufacturing companies, introducing computational techniques before moving into the engineering and manufacturing IT sector. Tom is passionate about engineering and manufacturing, and he has begun his career with a traditional engineering apprenticeship as a precision engineer servicing the oil and gas, mining, automotive industry in Scotland before moving on to the design analysis career with the British Aerospace and Jaguar Cars. Vikas Singhal, he is the Vice President, Integrated Supply Chain and Strategy Marketing, Whirlpool Corporation Asia. Vikas is a member of the board of directors for Whirlpool India, a 30 years operation veteran. Vikas has extensive experience leading large-scale manufacturing, supply chain, and new product realization teams. He has worked across the globe and industries. Vikas has a business management degree from XLRI and a bachelor's in the industrial engineering from IIT Roorkee. He is the Chief Engineering and Technology Officer, TVS Supply Chain. Vikram is responsible for process design and deployment and procurement, technology solution design, project implementation, optimization, and continuous improvement through automation. He possesses core skill in supply chain operation management, network design and planning, real estate design, productivity improvements, and technology design related to supply chain. From a successful assignment in the passenger aviation industry for about 7 years, he has for the past 23 years has firmly entrenched in the international and the domestic supply chain industry across express and bespoke solution-based operations. Parna Ghosh, who is the Vice President and Group CIO, Window. He has been leading strategic initiatives in IT in the group for the past 6 years. He has been supporting mergers and acquisitions across the world, driving digital transformation in all product lines and internal IT systems in the group, also triggering customer OE experience through innovation and experimentation in IT. And finally, Vijay Matthew, who's our moderator. He's the Director and Advisory Service Industrial Technologies with Frost & Sullivan. He has 16 plus years of experience providing strategic, unbiased, and objective advisory services to the client organization to improve productivity and overall performance. His expertise lies in tracking and monitoring the latest trends related to Industry 4.0, data analytics, predictive maintenance, and smart factories and blockchain technologies across a wide range of industries, which includes oil and gas, aerospace, automotive, manufacturing, and industrial markets. And now, without further ado, let's start. Over to you, Vijay.
Thank you, Sujata, and thank you, Mark, for that excellent presentation. It really was an eye-opener and also sets the tone perfectly for our discussion today. I would have to concur with a lot of what Mark has highlighted. Over the last decade, through Frost & Sullivan research as well, what we have realized that supply chain management has gone through significant changes. Changing market trends, the global pandemic as well has really exposed supply chain vulnerabilities and has created an impetus to adopt new technologies to create flexible, resilient, agile, and efficient supply chain networks. So what a digitized supply chain does is create real-time, end-to-end openness and transparency throughout the supply chain. automated work processes and collaborative platforms between customers, OEMs, and suppliers by integrating Industry 4.0 technologies, which Mark referred to already, technologies like data analytics, AI, machine learning, and so on, which helps to, identify and mitigate risk through real-time planning and allows for flexibility in changing supply and demand situations, which is what we saw a lot of during the pandemic and during COVID. So having said that, what we would like to explore through this panel discussion is, have things really changed on the ground over the last decade, but especially since the last couple of years since COVID? Have our supply chains become more resilient, and are we heading in the right direction? So that's the question I would like to start with, to ask our panel members. How have things evolved really with respect to data-led supply chains in the last decade, and especially in the last 2-3 years? So maybe I'd like to start with Thomas. So Thomas, OpenText is a cloud-based information management company that services a wide range of different industries. From your point of view, have the requirements of your customers evolved with these evolving market dynamics? And are you seeing a lot stronger uptake of your services and solutions?
Thanks, Vijay. First of all, good morning, everyone from the UK. It's a real pleasure to be on the call today. If we start with that question, really around the background of digitizing the supply chain, I think it's safe to say that we live in disruptive times, and manufacturing has been very resilient at responding to disruption. I'll say a bit more about that in a second. But it's fair to say that disruption is now the norm, regardless of the source, and it's increasingly important, and manufacturers realize it's increasingly important to have a robust response to it. Manufacturing supply chains are global and they're complex, and as such, they're very challenging. And while the pandemic didn't really tell us anything we didn't already know, manufacturers know that visibility of the supply chain, especially multi-user supply chains, multi-tier supply chains, can be problematic, but it's been a problem that we've lived with. But I have to say, until there was a compelling reason to change. So the pandemic was a real trigger for that. And what we've seen and what's been defined by the analysts like Gartner and associations like the Manufacturing Leadership Council, part of the National Association of Manufacturers in the US, as digital transformation was really accelerated during the pandemic. And it was led by cloud, because cloud is a relatively regional agnostic. So we've seen an acceleration in the move to digital transformation. In Vijay's terms, if we talk 5 to 10 years previously, manufacturing is a traditional, very traditional industry. Maybe adoption is somewhat slower, but it's been embracing technology for well over a generation. So really what we're seeing, in order for supply chains to be resilient to disruption, is they need to digitize based on the cloud. Increasingly, we're seeing supply chains becoming automated by data. Data is quickly becoming the currency of business within manufacturing, and it's been more machine driven. And sometimes we describe this as the autonomous supply chain, and that's really enhancing supply chain capabilities on 3 categories, which if we have time we can expand on later. The 3 categories are really pervasive visibility with the introduction of industrial IoT, Industrial 4.0. Sensor information is now becoming pervasive, which allows digital twins, digital threads to actually be used to mitigate disruption with better visibility. track and trace shipments, track and trace assets for better utilization and preventing loss. The move from vendor inventory management towards machine inventory management, where digitalization is driving the proactive replenishment of inventory, effectively to never miss the opportunity of a sale. And as Mark alluded to earlier, the third point is really around predictive maintenance, to monitor device health and performance, to fine tune on the fly as required, to proactively implement maintenance schedules based on data, to reduce part failure and the associated time and productivity losses, and really reduce and utilize manpower better against the traditional view of routine maintenance schedules. So that's mainly we're seeing why digital platforms are giving us better supply chain visibility and resilience, Vijay.
Okay, got it. Thanks, Thomas. So building on what Thomas has just mentioned, I think it's pretty obvious that COVID did make people stand up and take notice. So has this, and maybe Vikram, I can come to you now. Has this forced people to rethink supply chain strategies? And in your organization within TVS, has this kind of accelerated your digital transformation journey?
Sure, thanks, Vijay. So the pre-COVID days, I think for supply chain, especially in India, was typically a very muscle-oriented business. We were big and strong, you could get the business done. Where it's really transformed, and COVID's been the catalyst clearly, is if you've got a great supply chain strategy with regards to technology deployment and automation in place, I think you're heading in the right direction. So I'll take probably a few examples of where we went out and deployed simple technology to ensure that the day-to-day operations were not impacted. These might seem very, very rudimentary, but these are live examples, so I'm sure they'll add some value. Simple things like, and for a lot of us who are from India, we would remember that in the early days, there was a mass exodus of the workforce, from the main cities going back into towns and villages because no one really knew, what the epidemic or the pandemic was going to bring. So, traceability of staff, not knowing where your staff was. And by simply allowing our staff to remotely log in through an app or through an SMS back to our servers and tell us where they are, would they come to work the next day, allowed us to roster, what the throughput from our warehouses could be, to know where the drivers were, to know, what was our ability to carry product for our customers. That was the very, very first step. So to be able to trace our staff. A lot of our business comes from the FMCG business, the pharma, healthcare sector that we work in. And obviously our customers want to know that, our staff are not impacted by the pandemic, that they were, healthy and able to go to work. So simple, again, metrics of, your SpO2 levels, taking a temperature of the staff, logging it back into a data center, and then publishing data back to our customers saying that we have 80 or 90% of our staff that are able to, work in the operation the next morning. And therefore, again, determine what the flow through from those operating areas would be. Prior to COVID, all our SOP adherence checks used to be manually done. We were able to leverage visual recognition technology to go out and do this remotely. We store at any point of time thousands of crores of inventory for our customers. And again, unless a manager would go to the ground or a supervisor would go to the ground, the integrity of that inventory was always a question mark. But through use of technology, through using an enhanced WMS software, which again is developed by us in-house, we were able to accurately determine inventory at every single forward stocking location or every single storage location, and therefore again forecast what is it that we were able to feed to the market. So several such examples that we have of very, very basic operations where the manual activity was overridden with the technology deployment. We were able to assure our customers that we are able to cater to the OTIF that's required in a structured fashion, in a well forecasted manner. So clearly for us, COVID has changed the game, and we are well on our path to digitizing and technologically, embedding discipline into the system.
Thank you, Vikram. Those were some great examples. I'm just going to take a pause here and ask Sujata, are we about the poll?
We can now display the poll.
Okay, please go ahead.
We will analyze on this poll after the panel discussion is over. Vijay, you can carry forward. Thank you.
Okay, so as I was saying, Amol, I will come to you next. And, GE is well recognized for their digital transformation initiatives and digital strategy. But I would like to get your thoughts as well in terms of what we saw in India regarding the pandemic, and if that had any kind of impact on your own organization's digital transformation acceleration.
So again, I would not repeat what already been discussed, but what I would say here and would like to add that in the top, like the way Tom spoke about around the resilience and the supply chain. And I would say the single pursuit of any supply chain is how can you deliver the right product in the right quantity at right time and ultimately at the right cost. And when you think about all this, what you're looking for, a fully oiled, very efficient machine which is delivering the outcome to the customer. And when you try to do that, you keep driving the efficiencies and you take out all kind of buffers from your supply chain. That is the traditional thought process around the supply chain. On the other side, in the pandemic, we started talking about the resilience. And when you think about the resilience, what it means that how you can bounce it back after you hit by trauma, or how you can come out of a disruption. And now this, like there is a complete contradiction. One side you are driving the efficiencies, on the other side you are thinking about how can you recover. And for any recovery, you need to have the buffer. And I think that is where pandemic taught us that unless you have the right set of digital tools and which are available to you to get the kind of visibility you need, you may not be able to achieve the resilience. And that is where I would say that each one of you need to think about that. How can you think about a long-term digitization strategy, which can help you to get the greater visibility of the supply chain in the global context, when you might have, and I'm sure my fellow panelists and the people who are on the or in the session, each and every business, if you are multi-location, multi-geographies, multi-product, you may have the different ERPs, you may have the different systems, you may have some of the acquired business in the acquired ERPs and the tool, which may or may not be talking to each other seamlessly. And always you are in a situation to redo or remove everything, or pick up some of the latest tool available, which can create the whole data visualization analytics and providing you the outcome to make faster decisions. So I think that is what was our learning during that period. And definitely prior to COVID, we were working on a lot of such issues wherein we were solving some of the business problems in the global context. But definitely pandemic pushed us on a fast track that how can you think out of the box, because it is not about the business continuity planning, because everything came to pretty much a standstill. Some of your crisis and risk management or business continuity plan did not work at all. And that's where we started thinking in the different direction that how can we leverage some of the digital tool to drive a greater visibility of the data and some of the faster and efficient decision making.
Thank you, Amol. Very good points on thinking out of the box. And with that, I would like to come to you. On a high level, thoughts on why should organizations put efforts into data-led digital transformation, and what are the steps in going about doing it?
Thanks. Greetings and thanks for having me here. This is Vinod. I'm the C Group CIO for Veroc. So let me try to address the first part is why somebody would like to put this in place. I think Amol, Mark has already discussed some of it. Thomas also alluded to it. And so it's like, in a nutshell, if we say it's being able to monitor, measure, and analyze in real time uh, the data that is already there with you, so that you can allow the leaders to make a decision which will deliver a tangible monetary benefit. And also keeping into view that all the business we are trying to cater to one customer, so that so its customer aspect cannot be forgotten. So how can we make customers successful? By making the right decision, and to make the decision you need to have the right amount of data. So that becomes the key driver, is why we need this to be done. And then, as Mark said, I will try to pick from his slide that the way he put it, I really liked it. The supply chain disruption, and then at the bottom of the slide, there was a compelling event. So we already talked about COVID, and then you can say chip shortage, and one of the event which also happened last year, which sort of came and went by, but we have gone over it, is a Suez Canal fiasco which happened, where a lot of supply chain, close to 9.5 billion USD worth of business impact was there in those 6-7 days when the ship was stuck there. So I think these, and then Amol was talking about the resilience. So I think the resilience is one need, then a need to forecast and try to understand based on the data that you have and the external data, is how is my demand going to change, the demand coming from customer, and how is my supply chain going to respond to it? Can I accurately forecast and be ready for it? And I think the third element, which is now coming based on what Mark and Amol and Thomas also talked about, is the advancement of technology. You may like it or not like it, it's catching up. Like almost everybody has some kind of Alexa, either on their phone, on their watch, or there is Alexa device sitting in your living room and your kids talking to it. Yesterday, uh, my daughter wanted to check if ginger is good for the dog, and she said, Alexa, is ginger good for a dog? And Alexa would respond. So these technology is coming and entering into your home, and it is also entering in the business stream now. MRP that we had was a traditional MRP. It did what it's supposed to do. But is MRP learning? Yes, now there are new tools which are coming up where it can continuously learn from the data. So this is a third kind of need at the top level. There are many, but these are the top three why somebody should be doing it. Okay. And then coming back, what I said, I'll repeat, is this is allowing the business leader to make a decision based on clean data. And also not just that, but it's also that continuously learn from it, so that we can use the AI ML capability. Like we were talking about the predictive maintenance. I think Thomas was talking about the predictive maintenance. I was part of a project a few years back in my earlier company, where we successfully deployed maintenance management capability, where capital shutdown of one of the big equipment would need like 3-4 days, but it was an important bottleneck station. Now you have to complete this shutdown and bring it back up and running in that stipulated time. And the past experience told that whenever that happened, we always found out that this we are short of this part and we have to scramble. So the lot of companies and consultant came together and solved it in such a way that, first of all, these maintenance were getting scheduled in advance, and then it will also check the stock level of the spares which are needed, and back order in the supply chain network and say that, okay, I need this stock by this date, and give a thumbs up to the maintenance team that, okay, 15 days in advance you are good in terms of stock and you should be able to do it. So I think these are the needs that are coming up. Now, coming to how we are going to do it, I think in this case, you cannot start running. You can just crawl, then walk, and then start, depending upon the maturity of the organization. I visited Amul's, I just remember that I had gone and visited GE in Pune, and I was amazed with their capability in predicts and all. So that organization is at a very maturity level, but there are other organizations who are trying to step up their game and come into that. So they need to identify where is the data that they have, which they need to exploit, and not forgetting that data is not within your ERP, your CRM, or your WMS and other sources like supplier portal. You will be lucky if you have one solution where you have all this, but you end up having an organic growth. You acquire somebody. That was also part of the poll, that how is your growth driven by ERP or organic. So finding out where is the data, and then what, also worry about the external data, because just having your data is not enough. You need to have the sources identified from customer, vendor, and things like that. And there is one more source which is now being used more and more, is a public database like Metal Market, London Metal Market Exchange. If you are dealing with metal, then you need to know, so that you can hedge for it, and maybe you hold on to a big buy because you know the forecast says the price is going to go down, and per kilo you are going to make so much difference in terms of your raw material. So weather pattern, I was talking about the Suez Canal type of event. So I think these are the data that you need to say. So finding out what is the data. Also, to put in the strategy is how to go about doing it. You also need to know what do you want, what is your priority. Like we talked about OTIF earlier, I think it was Amol was talking about, or Mark. So on time in full, maybe your strategy. Do you want to optimize your inventory? So putting the strategy together is what is the area that where you want to strategize, and then try to hack it down to smaller pieces and executing it. Because if you try to do a big bang, probably it may succeed if you're lucky, but at in a lot of cases that we have seen, it fails if you try to do a very big bang. So prioritizing and knowing what you want to do also is important, is involving the right people. So there are a lot of data information which is in the head of either your experts or your external sources. You need to involve them and take their inputs, so that the solution that you are trying to develop in terms of getting the supply chain visibility is addresses not only the right problem, but also addresses the thoughts and the pain areas of the right people. Then comes the tool, because there are a lot of tool. We just talked about OpenText and the capability that they have, but then depending upon what you are, like if you're a small organization producing 2 or 3 products and it is going to 2 or 3 customers, then a lot of information is there in your organization. Your tool set will be different. But if you are Amazon of the world and you have a very complex supply chain matrix, then you probably have to invest a lot in AI ML, because physically using tools and people, you will not be able to solve those problems, because becomes a linear equation. And then last but not least is how to measure, and the KPI metric, so that it's a continuous cycle. Plan, do, check, act is if you notice, I'm not talking about technology. This is very basic. It's if you do the basic right in terms of strategy, is finding out what are your priority, where is the data, who should you involve, what is your team, what are the tools that you need. Based on all this, the tool will be driven. And then also keep on checking whether you are doing the right thing, it is giving the right value, or you need to reinvent something and go back to the drawing board. So I think these are the basics which I would say would need to be done in order to come up to your solution for the supply chain.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That was very insightful. And I think one of the things that you mentioned there, right at the beginning is understanding the customer requirements. But the truth is, the pressures are quite high in the manufacturing world. Customer expectations, of course. Then there are the quality requirements. Efficiency is important, and of course, sustainability is central theme around everything these days. So, because I would like to come to you now with this question about, a lot of companies have, to some extent, have a digital strategy. But going into the future, how important do you think it is to have a very clearly defined, what Vinod was talking about? How important will it be for competitive survival to have a very clearly defined digital strategy as part of your overall organizational strategy?
Yeah, thanks, Vijay. That's an interesting query. And I think some of my panelists have already alluded to some aspects of we are all talking about digital supply chain these days. The one thing which pandemic has definitely done is brought supply chain from the shop floor to boardrooms. The number of webinars, number of conversations, right at the CEOs and chairman's level are far more than what it used to happen, let's say 5 years back. So irrespective of anything, the supply chain is a glamour now, which used to be a non-glamorous job previously. But jokes apart, I think the sequence of events which have happened have surely forced organization to look at alternate means, and digital ecosystem and technologies are helping us around that. But as Vinod said, digitization will not solve if there are fundamental issues in the core supply chain. If you just don't make right product, you don't know what the consumer is, or your fundamentally processes are not right, digitization does not help. It helps you to really look at, bring speed and visibility and traceability on this piece. So the strategy, what we want to achieve, an organization want to achieve, and what problem you're trying to solve becomes important. And if that is not defined, just going to a mega E2E kind of a toolkit doesn't help. And that's why whether you take a small piece or a larger, it has to sync in with the strategy of the organization. Is it your brand portfolio is changing, positioning is changing? Are we just not able to sell for some other reasons, or it's just simple D2C kind of a thing, which a whole lot of people, as the physical supply chain vanished to D2C, was a kind of a big piece. Other than the organizational strategy, what is also required, and I want to allude out here, we are talking a lot about digital tools. It is also about organizational framework. Data starts talking, and a lot of failures I see is because we are in organizations, we are still structured in a traditional manner. There is a CTO, there is a manufacturing shop floor, there's a supply chain guy. So the human beings talk still in the silos. The data wants to cross the path and talk around. That does not work. So strategy is just not digital tools. It is an overall, it's almost like a business process reengineering or a flow of how things flow. Is strategy, what problems you want to solve, and how you are structured to solve that up. Getting data will not help if a manufacturing data is not believed by a supply chain chap, or a supply chain data, the sales guy says that it is a very different. And that's one of the biggest flaw which starts popping up, because the digital really seamless connectivity helps if the people and functions also. So it's the boardroom strategies or business strategy and organizational structure, which is essential to really make this transition far more critical. And it also becomes, and I just want to add a point, is why it becomes more and more important to walk in this path, irrespective of what level of maturity you are, because the digital ecosystem is multiplying dramatically. If you don't do it, your competition is going to do it dramatically different. So it's just not an option. The speed and domain one company wants to operate will depend upon the industry they are in, the product they are. Second, let's say 10 years back, we used to look at journal broad themes and work our go-to-market product designs around that. Today, themes are not very generic. Within industry, pandemic, some companies have made a lot of money, some companies have gone bankrupt. In every problem is creating far more smaller ripples in different industry, different sub-segments of it. So it's not one solution. The digital tools allows you to stratify data and look at those sub-themes and then focus around build it out. It's just not a supply chain. It kind of is a different analysis which we look at from what the market is behaving. And here's when the competitive pressure starts building up. So I don't see it's an option. Either the consumer is going to force you or a competition is going to force you to do this. Evolution will depend upon which level of maturity an organization is there. Thanks, Vijay.
Okay, thank you, Vikas. Very interesting insights there. Thomas, would you like to chime in there in addition to what Vikas has mentioned? You know, it's not just about the tools, but also functions within the organization, collaborating or making that crossover, just like the data is ready to do it, but maybe the organizational structure is not ready yet.
Yeah, I think culture is fundamental to change. So while digital tools can help accelerate solving problems, the point's well made that if you try to implement that in a culture, a traditional culture, as I've identified in manufacturing. And that's changing now as well, because the the Manufacturing Leadership Council in the US has identified that before the end of the decade, millennials will be in the senior management positions within manufacturing, and again they have a different outlook. And really, to take up some of the some of the things that were already mentioned, Vikram mentioned that they implemented straightforward wins. So your implementation of digital has to be around straightforward wins. And McKinsey and the like talk about this concept of fail fast and learn, and then repeat. And then the other side is, short wins, build sponsorship within the board level. And Vikas made the point that supply chain, is now much more higher up on the within the board level to address things. And then Vinod made a very interesting comparison with Alexa and an experience with his daughter. We actually had an experience with a customer, and it really is all about the data. We had a customer who was looking at they were a steel manufacturer, and they were looking at their sales forecasts, and they were looking at their margins. They were managing them in spreadsheets, and they basically couldn't keep up with the pace of data. Humans couldn't process enough information. So they had the data, they deployed analytics to understand the data, and in the analytics, they actually realized that their core business, what they were selling, wasn't really making them enough money in margins. It was more to actually focus on more expensive offerings. And they took that one step forward, but they actually then used AI and voice recognition to put apps on the salesman's telephone, that when the salesman visited a customer, they could use the app to ask for the status of orders, and they had a really good idea of the situation with the customer before they engaged with the customer, and the customer appreciated that, and that built brand loyalty. So it's really the technology has never been the solution. It's only been a means to an end, and I think there's been some great examples here in the discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Thomas. Sadagopan, if I can come to you now. Just building on what Thomas said about fail fast and repeat, I think it can be confidently asserted now that without a clear digital strategies, companies will struggle. So, what we have seen that even though companies see the value in it, some have struggled to scale. There are companies who struggle with POC proof of concept paralysis, and struggle to move beyond that and realize the full value of digital technologies. So any suggestions from you on how you have gone about this at your organization?
Thanks, Vijay. And Thomas, right from beginning, he was making the point that we can make digital autonomous. In Ashok Leyland, digital is destiny, actually. After the pandemic, I can say that we put 3A strategy, that automation, analytical, and artificial intelligence. Now it is already integrated to all functions, and we are only connecting the dots now. As I rightly said 2 minutes back, that digital arms and ammunitions we put to Salesforce to identify the customer demand, and the customer demands are directly through digital architecture linked to production plan. So our production plan is directly from the sales plan, and all our PPM meetings, production plan meetings, are happening digitally. Whatever is already derived. Of course, there is a course correction is happening because there is a problem in the inventory management. For example, if customer demand is 500 vehicles and inventory is put to and at the end of the month, if 500 is reduced to 400, then you will have 100 inventory remaining. So right now we are doing course correction, that is we are calling as an optimizer tool for inventory management. There is slight difficulty in that when you add the varieties what we are managing to the customer demand. However, we have online platforms for vehicle booking and vehicle care. Once vehicle number is there, There is a traceability. In fact, from TVS, he was mentioning about traceability. We have 100% traceability right from building the vehicle till the life cycle of the vehicle with the customer. So we have traceability, and we are calling that as a digital tools for 360-degree customer view we have. And we have some loyalty programs also. We encourage customer to give us data through our loyalty programs. And we are using digital platform for real-time dashboard. For example, I am using IoT. Wherever truck is running, I will open my iAlert. It is called as iAlert. When I open that iAlert dashboard, I can exactly know the dashboard of the customer, in which space he is running, which gradient he is running, what is the RPM, what is the vehicle speed, what are the condition of the engine or any electronic components inside. Whatever data is fetched, it is being fed to our computer now. And we are using that for our hygiene and process audit also. So from sale, again, it goes to procurement. Now, procurement is automated when inventory is already calculated what is required. Directly, it raises the RPS to the suppliers, tier 1 supplier, then tier 2 supplier. Automatically, the requirement is generated. And once the components come from supplier, and we are having a supplier performance monitoring, and supplier performance monitoring will declare that what is the demand and what is the actual which came. That will decide the production plan. For example, I have asked 500 components and came only 300. Then production can put only 300 vehicles. So production plan is linked. So sales and marketing, supply chain, and production plan, all are through SAP HANA. We are using SAP HANA, and SAP Ariba is the exact procurement system we are using. And I hope by course correction, it will become automation in today. And when you go to shop floor, we are really aiming at automation. We are using few cobots, as well as we are using automated guided vehicles, and we are using some visual aids. For example, if you miss the bolt, or if you miss the bearings, or if you miss to apply a sealant, this camera will catch it and there will be interlocking. So sales to procurement to shop floor, it is already integrated, and all are at the background of finance. Everything is being calculated. So we are calling as a enable platform related everywhere. And of course, in product development, when it comes, we are using 3D printing. For 3D printing, we are using, and we are using virtual tools. For example, virtual tools are being used. So manufacturing is first time right. Of course, there are some corrections if we change the design. And we are aiming at digital twins, and we are off the way there. We are not fully in digital twin now. So we are in the journey, and we are saying that 2021 to 26, we will connect the dots and how to monetize these assets which are all invested. That is what we are equipped now. And we are saying that we are having a modular platform that is called as mass customization. Now, when apps are applied with customer to get the demand, our sales configurator is there. We created sales configurator. That means if any customer comes, he can specify haulage or tractor or even trailer, and automatically which horsepower is required, which gearbox is required, which tire is required, he can select. That's called a sales configurator. So it is totally integrated sales configurator where the product specs will be fed back to the production. And at the end, I can say that we will use big data analytics for prognosis. Now we have all customer data. So like predictive maintenance, he was talking for machines, we will be doing prognosis for customer failure data. At the end, what we can say is we have a clear digital strategy, and there is a big leadership commitment. In fact, every time they're asking how we can grow 10 times. In fact, many of the digital tools are already employed, and periodic assessment is there, and there is an encouragement. Even Microsoft Forms, or even we are using many software. So digital is the way of life. That's all I can say. It's fully connected, actually.
Thanks, Krishna. That was really, really interesting and really, really impressive. Clearly an early adopter. Well done.
Thank you, Parna. Thank you, Thomas. Sorry, Panna, if I can come to you now. As a component manufacturer for the automotive industry, supply chain, of course, is critical. I'd be curious to know, and our audience as well, about your digital transformation journey and some of the learnings that you've had in this process.
Thank you, Manufacturing Today, for inviting in this important webinar. Am I audible, first of all?
Yes, sir, you are.
Oh, great. Okay, so, our digital transformation journey, we started almost, I will say 6 years back, when we implemented S/4HANA in the organization, which was a very basic foundation of the digital journey, which we had, thought of, that without this, we can't do any kind of digital transformation, irrespective of the customer supply side issues or the HR, finance, or any other supply chain issues altogether. Looking at, the global trends, I just want to highlight a few seconds on that. 2018, we had a, market slowdown due to the consumption got lower in the entire globe. Followed by 2019, also it was pretty flat. 2020, we came across COVID, and then 21, we had the chip shortage story. And now 2022, we have a geopolitical issue, whether it is Russia versus Ukraine or some other parts of the world, and followed by expected global inflation and recession in 2023, which is, yet to come up as per the predictions by all the analysts in the Western world. I think looking at all the disruptions, obviously, digital transformation is the only way forward to leapfrog your, your organization, your business, your strategies, and also your growth story, whatever you have, whether it is domestic or in the markets outside India. So a few things I can just, just talk about here, because I mean, the time is short. So we had this EDI platform implemented around 7 years back, although it is beyond our digital strategy program, which is called AutoDX for the OEM and the tier 1 supplier integration. So currently we are also having this EDI, integrated with 5 of the largest OEMs in India, and this is working perfectly fine. So whether it is the supply chain information, whether it is contract management, whether it is ASNs, whether it is deliveries, quality, everything is highly integrated into this platform, and it follows the United Nations standard platform followed across other countries. And then we had the first and foremost digital disruption or the strategy implementation in the marketing side, where we implemented complete business plan, forecasting, budgeting, followed by the RFQ management. So my marketing function today is 100% paperless. And when I say paperless, it actually has the complete information of the OEM strategy for the next 5 years, and the market changes which are coming up, the new technologies which are coming up. Say, for an example, we are talking about PACE technology nowadays, personalization, autonomous, connected, and electric. So the space technology also is part of the forecasts and budgets. And also the RFQs are completely tracked, each and every RFQ, and we have 20 product lines across globe. All the RFQs, it's a huge volume of data, so we track the starting from its inception of the RFQ, receiving from the customer till the start of production, or we call go live for the particular product. So this is completely digitized. Then we came to the area of the materials, which is also a very important part of our, the organization, where the supplier collaboration platform was, built in. And then we are connecting the tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers into this platform. And the similar thing which is done in the EDI platform, we are doing the same thing in the supplier collaboration platform, sharing all the information of the contracts, the purchasing information, rate contracts, then the ASNs, receiving, quality, delivery cost, and every other information is shared there. Apart from drawings and designs, which are part of the next stage of digital transformation. Then we have live dashboards, which gives us data, the live feeds of whatever is going on in the organization, whether it is materials or marketing or related to strategic initiatives or related to operational, efficiencies or operational KPIs. Those dashboards are also in place. And our entire MIS, see, there are around 60, 65 MIS in the organization, which is completely digitized through dashboards. And we are reviewing everything through the dashboards, which was also a big digital transformation with respect to the organization. And then the third piece, which I will talk about, is the IoT for the manufacturing plants, which is basically we, although implemented certain IoT implementations before COVID, but post-COVID, we have ramped up the speed. And not only IoT, now we have also done successful POCs for advanced planning, complete MES suite, the traceability, FIFO. Now, traceability, FIFO, if you listen, this is not a recent story. These things are going on for last 1 decade or so. But now traceability and FIFO becoming more important with respect to regulations in India. I think now it is becoming more important. And the inventor of the electronic component part. So electronics was around 10% or less than 10% of our total buying from the market. Now electronics is becoming almost 25% of our total buying. And when I say electronics, it encompasses PCBs, it encompasses imported chips, semiconductors, diodes, and everything. So I think the story of manufacturing and supply chain is also now going through a big change with the advent of advanced planning, MES, traceability, FIFO, and other solutions. Last but not the least, I will also talk about supply chain financing and forex and treasury management. So these are the two things we have done to ease out business or ease out operations with our suppliers. So supply chain financing is nothing but a tool which provides automatic financing to the supplier and creates a credit limit and gives us a working capital benefit in terms of interest savings. Similarly, forex and treasury management also helps us in doing a better working capital management for cash inflow and out. And I think, sorry, I think I'll take just another 30 seconds more. In the areas of HR, also I need to mention what we have done. For the white collar, we have already completely digitized for around 5,500 employees. The complete hire to retire process, learning management system, succession planning, and compensation and benefit management. So these are all already automated and onto a digital platform, including the mobile app. Now we are doing for 25,000 blue collar employees, a complete digital inclusion program to automate their time office, their payroll, their complete, shift management, the OD management, the leave management, everything is going to be onto a single platform, which we have taken a global, ERP, kind of a global software through which we are doing a complete digitization of the blue collar employees, which is 25,000 across the globe. So these are the initiatives, we have taken up in our organization in the last 5 years. And now, since the focus is on manufacturing and supply chain, so this MES, advanced IoT, and the integration with the supply chain and manufacturing is going to be ramping up. Since we have 72 plants globally, so we have to do the implementation in the next 2 years for all the locations. We are already there for 10 plants right now, but rest of the 62 plants will be ramping up the speed to implement that. And one more thing, sorry, I forgot to mention, is the PLM, which is also somebody mentioned in the previous slides, which is product lifecycle management. I think that is also very, very important, not only for creating the digital twins, also for your complete product lifecycle visibility to your customers. So your customers are also having an access to whatever you are doing in tier one. Suppose there are 300, 400 RFQs. So where is every product lying at which stage, and what is the risks associated with that, or there are no risks associated with that? What are the costs associated with that? How many changes are happening in the engineering control, engineering change management? So all these areas now, if you see, encompassing the whole organization, there is a digital strategy which we are moving ahead with at this point of time. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Parna. Thank you for sharing those insights. So Vinod, I'm going to come to you now. We've talked a bit about different technologies that aid in this digital transformation, and also from the presentation we earlier from Mark, we looked at different technologies like cloud, analytics, and AI ML. So from your point of view and your organization, would you be able to tell me if do you concur with some of these, what was in the presentation and some of these discussions in terms of the technology adoption? Which are the biggest drivers of this transformation?
Yeah, definitely. I think in earlier discussions, it came up that this is not a matter of choice. This is matter of survival and being resilient and ability to respond. Like if Parna just covered like all 9 years, I can say, of what somebody could do as a part of their digital strategy. And as he said, they started 6 years back with getting the right ERP and a solid foundation in place. So similar to that, we have been also putting in a lot of effort to put a strategy which is supported at the top level, because unless that is done and everybody is sold on what is the benefit it will bring to the organization, things don't move. So we started 3 years back with that, putting a strategy together and executing it as phases. So the first phase was to get the right foundation and a solid foundation on which you can put in all this tool set. You cannot have, because there are some critical mass, like SAP is a critical mass of data where you like it or not like it. Most of the data is going to come from your ERP, whether it is SAP or Oracle ERP or something else. So that has to be rock solid and it should have clean data. Like when I say clean data, it should have the right control so that there's no lacuna in the data. The master data management has to be in place. There should be a process in how the data gets updated. We talked about the PLM in the earlier discussion, which is going to drive a lot of, if you're a manufacturing organization, especially automobile, having the right plan, the manufacturing bomb and integration with your PLM is very important. So getting those foundation in place, which we have done, and now adding the other layer is what we are started doing, is IoT, is putting in the IoT in place. Like just yesterday we as I said earlier, we also have to make the business team as a part of your strategy and as part of the project. One of the important inputs that we got, that implementing IoT, but to visualize the data, we have to go to the special desktop or laptop on the shop floor or look at the screen, which is there on each line. But sometimes the screen is not big. You have to like walk down to see how much you have produced. Can you not put it in the phone? So we worked with the vendor and we created a PWA application of the same data. And now people are able to, so it's now become device agnostic. You can view this data from any device anywhere and they are a happy camper. So we just started the rollout of this. Like the other thing, we this morning, we had an interesting meeting with one of the business stakeholders at the top level. Like 6 months back, he said, can I not wait for people, like he has been asking for a certain data at the start of the week, and he would probably get it after 2 days after he asked, because somebody has to churn the data, bring it out, and then what he sees in Excel sheet. Then his question was that if you have this data in SAP, why can't I run the report and not just run the report? And as we had talked about, and Thomas also alluded to it, is that I would like to talk to the system and ask my query. And last 2 3 days, like on Friday and this morning, we did this experiment where, and I've never seen an ecstatic 65 55-year-old leader, like he was so happy to see that he was able to ask the question that today I have a sales. He asked this conversational AI to the BI tool that show me the top sales where the sales is there, but we have crossed the credit limit. Like this is like we're talking about sales to the aftermarket team. So this is an aftermarket distributor. We have sold, but we want to recover the money. So he was saying, okay, this is a good sale, but then we have crossed the credit limit by 1.5 crore. This is not good sale from me. So he was challenging his people. He said to get that to this kind of data, it used to take me like months. Sometimes he won't even get, because it's a very ugly question for the salesperson who is on the ground. But what IT did is we just created the data set, the metadata, and provided it there. Now it's up to him to do this query, and it will figure out which table, which join to make, and make it happen. And all this tool is available today. It's not like you have to spend millions of dollars to do it. Conversational AI is already there. Apart from that, what we're also working on is the set of metrics that I think Vikas or maybe Vikram was, I think it was Vikas was talking about, is on time in full, shortage report, then inventory report. So these are the dashboard which are needed on daily basis for people to optimize the inventory and make sure that we have the right inventory, not too much, not too less, and we have to be, justified to the impact that we are making to the cash in the hand or the cash that we have. So I think there is a set of report dedicated to controlling the bottom line. Like we are experimenting and implemented this in one of the business unit is the product profitability. So this has been an very challenging task is to pin down and see the profitability of one of the product which has gone in the field and we are selling. Being a B2B, we sell it to all the Hondas and TVS and Enfields and Bajaj. So when the product starts in the sales process, maybe 4 years back, everything was good and dandy, and we had a good manufacturing bomb. Over a period, the customer will ask for a change. Then the bomb probably would reflect, not reflect. Things creep in. You have to continuously check: are we eroding the profitability by adding some change to either to manufacturing process or to the product mix? And that was not happening. Now with that, it is very clear there is a erosion in the profit margin, and where exactly is this and when did this started happening. So now we are able to pinpoint and see when this started happening, what were the root cause, whether it was a metal market fluctuation, did we move our vendor from A to B, was it the product mix that we started to change the copper from this percent to that percent, and the copper price went up, nobody noticed, and we just, in order to survive, we started buying at a top price and we did not negotiate. I think these are the thing which is helping the organization to either contribute to the top margin or to the bottom line. And earlier I was talking about MRP. The earlier MRP out of box was like this firm, and there is a certain month of forecast. As Parna was talking about, now all the people who are in the automobile market, they know that chip shortage has impacted us a lot. So the forecast that we need to give, or the margin that we have, the window that we have to provide to our supplier and distributor, they are asking for like 14 months, which was never heard of earlier. Now you have to build that functionality, and we have just did that and doing it. Now the shortage report I talked about.
Sorry, 1 second. I have to do a quick time check with Sujata. Sorry to interrupt you.
We have 10 more minutes, Vijay.
We have 10 more minutes. Okay, thank you.
So I'll just
Please
take 2
continue.
minutes. Shortage report.
Yeah.
We have built an intelligent shortage report. We know that the chip shortages happen. No, it is not in our control or the control of the OEM. But we go back to our OEM and say that, hey, this shortage has created a problem. We will potentially stop your line 3 weeks down the line, but we have this product mix in place. Can we collaboratively work and you change your production plan? Because we have this data, we will be able to supply the material for this model and not this model. And this has given a lot of trust back from the OEM that thanks for not telling 1 day in advance that you are not going to give me this part and stop my line. But at the same time, we are collaboratively working that, okay, let's do this, at the same time work on how we'll solve the problem. So I think these are directly indirectly linked to the supply chain and are helping the organization.
Vinod sir, this is Krishnan here, but the chip shortage affected a lot, even though we have all digital platform. The reason being, the vehicle requirement is already more. Plus, we have other business like power solution business, LCV, defense. So, because of chip shortage, we are supposed to ration it. And even some small customers who are taking engines from us, they are not able to get it at all. If somebody ordered 100, we are giving 50. Somebody ordered 90, we are giving 6 numbers. So I think it is clearly mentioned that Suez Canal fiasco, chip shortage, pandemic, Russia versus globe, now recession expected. Though we have digital, actually we want to do it. But top management or in the board, we are not able to see the bottom line. So that is why, and still we hope that we told that, okay, up to 2026, we'll connect everything and we'll become fully digital. That's what we are committed.
Okay, thank you. So Amol, if I could come to you now, So I think what we know with this kind of digital transformation is that it cannot be done in silos, of course, within the organization, but also outside the organization. Collaboration and supportive, collaborative ecosystems with, government, investors, pioneers, technology partners, all need to come together to be able to drive this. Can you tell me about your experience with that? Amol, question was directed to you.
Yeah, sorry, I was talking to muted speaker. So I would say definitely I'll talk more about internal collaboration than the outside, because outside world we don't really rely much on in terms of when it comes to digitization. But when in terms of we talk about the internal collaboration, which is the key, and the main collaboration happen at the design stage when we are looking for the different solutions and the way the different systems are going to interact. And I think that is one of the biggest part of this whole digital journey, that unless you set the right culture and the mindset in place for the different people at the different level who are going to work on this, definitely the outcome will not be what you're looking for. You can have the best of the best tool, but it may not work unless people are collaborating, because most of the functions are having design conflict, and people believe over a period of time that conflict is the way of life rather than collaboration, which can drive the outcome. And we have seen the multiple stakeholders are not working together at a very high level in terms of driving the outcomes. And that is where you need to first follow that top-down approach. As Mr. Sadagopan rightly said, that you have to commit from the leadership team side, saying, yes, this is what our plan is, this is our goal, and this way we are going to reach, and by when. And then everybody gets aligned to the bigger picture. And another thing which is very important, that you need to do a little bit, not too many things at one point of time. And you need to look at that the kind of tool you are going to implement are really worth for everyone in terms of what is in it for me when I look for my function or from the other function, so that everybody should be having the skin in the game. So I think those are the kind of challenges what we have seen. And always we work on a I would say constructive conflict, so that you can attain the collaboration at the end of it. So culture, definitely, which is the base for any of this digital transformation. Unless you reset the right culture, you will not be successful in this journey. That is what our experience. I'll stop here in the interest of the time, because we have 2-3 more minutes.
I will like to interrupt here. There is a request from 2-3 audience that, if we can continue the discussion for at least for another 5 to 10 minutes. So I will just extend that timing here. We will end at 4:45, if that is okay with everyone.
Okay, Sujata, I need to drop off at 4:40.
No
have
problem.
Another meeting at 4:45. Okay.
Yeah,
No problem.
I also need to drop out at 4:40. Yeah.
Sujata, I will drop out now because I have another.
Yeah, Sujata,
it is almost
4:30.
Sure. Amal, if you can continue your point.
Okay, Vikas, then I will come to you, since you have to leave in another 8 to 10 minutes. So can you tell me a little bit about the challenges you have faced with respect to, there are a host of challenges, of course, there's the skill gap issue, there are regulatory issues, infrastructure, leadership, not clearly defined goals, all of that. Can you tell us about your experience with this and some of the challenges you faced and managed to overcome?
And I think I'll start with what Amol said. The challenges, again, regulatory challenges are there when you connect to, especially from payment gateways and transferring, but I think that's a step 2. The bigger challenges I always see are internal, and that's where, as we have implemented. One, and I think Thomas or somebody mentioned, we need to accept, as we start defining the strategy, that at first go, everything is not going to be perfect. So there is a learning curve, both for people, for tools. So that aspect, which needs to be very well accepted. Otherwise, the first problem comes up is you implement a tool, whether it is a full or partial, you start deploying it, some functions or some people will start having problems. So one way is that, okay, guys, it just doesn't work. The skeptics straight away come back and say, okay, this thing doesn't work. We were pretty good earlier. Let's just drop it and let's go to different, because so that is one very important aspect. And that's why the sponsorship at the right and the essential to any transformational. whether we do digital or any transformation journey. In digital, it is a lot of new, depending on the age of the organization, it's a lot of newness around it. So that aspect of first attempt, there would be issues, and how can you really run around and quickly fix it up and go forward. And that's why in my approach, a small steps or a partial tool implementation is always. A big bang approach really creates far bigger issues around that, whether it is across function or any tool. And even you're pulling up an algorithm, and we deployed Anaplan our forecasting algorithms. So it is as good as what the data is coming in. And if the team is just not filling in good enough data, you will always say, okay, see, we told you forecasting doesn't work, and this is way off. And so to me, that's the biggest piece. Same way, we also need to, as collectively, the implementation team or change agent needs to really get some wins and celebrate around that. And once you start getting it, I think the journey becomes pretty smooth across organization. We've been able to really automate whole of our supply chain, a large part of supply chain in two different segments. All forecasting or demand planning is automated. All my material planning, line balancing, everything is automated. They are still not connected, because we said, okay, let's just do two different cycles. But and it has been, and it took us almost an 18-month journey, but now it's a very different world. As you talk around the people, the visibility is more there. And someone did mention, can we see three days or a week ahead in time and adjust accordingly, whether it's customers or around. So I would say these two pieces. Don't believe it is a perfect piece. The culture management has to happen, and keep finding wins and start moving. And to me, that becomes irrespective of technology. Second piece is, pretty fast we start debating whether we picked up the right tool. And Thomas and Mark, you have been implementing tools around. The debate comes that I picked up a tool A. No, guys, there's another tool B would have been better. We just picked up a wrong tool. Irrespective of tool you pick, this is going to be a learning journey for the organization to do it. That's in a nutshell my sense around every.
Thank you, Vikas. Parna, I'm going to come to you next because you need to drop off in 5 minutes. I wanted to get your opinion on some forward-looking statements. How do you think India is positioned currently in terms of, in terms of being able to scale, and also what are some unique challenges and opportunities that we are faced with at the moment?
Yeah, thank you, Vijay. I still remember before 2018, there was a prediction that by next 3 years, the auto ancillary industry will clock around $75 billion in India. But about what happened in last 3 years is just a reverse trend, and then we are still struggling to catch up to that figure of 75 billion, which is a magic figure, to cross certain milestone. But now what is happening is, because of the trends are changing and India becoming a large manufacturing hub for the entire globe, and not only for the Indian domestic consumption, because of the threats from China or other parts of the globe. I think it seems to be that the way government policies are getting changed, or the industry is getting started ramping up. I think it's time for the industry to look at digital transformation, whether it is IoT or any other technology. I think it's the right time, or the high time rather, to start ramping up the investments in the technological areas. At the same time, as someone was mentioning, everybody's grappling with the bottom line or the net margins or stuff like that. It's true that the one side, the revenues are coming up or drastically ramping up, but the bottom lines are getting shrink because of the commodity prices, the hike in commodity prices, and many other global challenges. The dollar is now, on a very, very higher side in terms of, buying commodities from outside. So I think I will have one thing, like a very simple solution or suggestion for everyone who is part of, who are listening to this, event or program. One is, I think someone mentioned in the very beginning that fail early and, learn early, and then start implementing those lessons in the next steps. I think that's very, very important. So you start small, start learning something, have some failures, have some learnings, and then, go to the next step. I think that's very, very important. Instead of taking up too much of big digital transformations and then go for long-term investments, which nobody is interested. Nowadays, the CFOs are talking about short-term investments, short-term payback, short-term ROI and stuff like that. I think that's very, very important. So look at 3 months, 6 months, 9 months projects, and then look at the next project after completion. So whatever I have told earlier is actually not a 1 year story; it's a 6 year story. So obviously, don't take my discussion as like we have done it in 1 year. Second thing is, two things in our strategy we are following. One is AR strategy, AIR. AIR is nothing but AI, IoT, and RPA. So A for artificial intelligence, I for IoT, R for robotics process automation. So AR will give you some air in the organization as well to think beyond whatever you have, the current traditional tools or the legacy tools which you have, and give you new set of information, new set of data, and also look at the complete integration in the organization. Second thing is ABC. ABC is nothing but first A is nothing but AR VR for the people trainings, and that's a big disruption which is coming up. The traditional training methodologies are getting changed to AR VR technologies. B is nothing but blockchain, which is really coming up very, very fast in Indian market. And I believe blockchain will also help you in digitizing or disrupting your entire supply chain processes, whether it is OEM, whether it is tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and also along with the government. You look at the government program of this digital currency, it's based on blockchain. So I think blockchain is going to be the next disruptor in the automotive industry. And C is nothing but chatbot. So when I say chatbot, actually many people nowadays do not want to come to the board meetings, reviews and meetings and stuff like that. He needs to see the results. He needs to see the revenues or the product line improvements or the profitability or something like that. You have chat box available for every employee at certain levels, and they can extract information, whatever they need based on their roles and access and other things. I think these ABC and AIR, I think these are the two strategies we are also following in the next few years. Our strategies will revolve around these 6 technologies. Thank you.
So I will come to Vikram now. Vikram, are you still on the call?
Yeah, I am. You able to see me?
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So Vikram, I just wanted to get your thoughts on, these supply chains are pretty broad concepts, and it requires a lot of collaboration and different people to come together to make it happen. Do you think a lot of this innovation can happen in-house, or do you think open innovation and collaborative ecosystems are critical to help companies scale and realize the true value of digital technologies?
So clearly, I think alignment and collaborative innovation is clearly the way to go. If I just take one example of the early days when we developed a driver app, and it was so easy, when we looked at it, but when you took it to the shop floor and you got a driver to try and use it, it was so difficult because first of all, we have to understand that everyone, each one of us as well, while we may speak in English, we may think in our native language, right? So a driver in India especially does both in the native language. He thinks in the local language, he also speaks in the local language. So, simple things like that. If you were to use a much broader example of, almost about 14, 15 years back, there was a EDI developed between customs, the various international express companies, and the nodal agency that was developing the software. And everyone did it standalone. They all thought of it from their own perspective and deployed it, and it was disaster. It took 3 runs to really deploy the EDI framework, which is in existence today. But if you look at, similarly, when the GST portal was deployed, someone sat together, thought through, all the stakeholders came on board, and then deployed the GST portal. And yeah, not to say that there were no glitches, but it went off far more smoothly. So using these 2 examples, clearly, if technology is to be deployed, if technology is to be embraced, it will clearly need all stakeholders on board to come together, share experiences, share resources, and then bring to bear what is best for the industry at large. It's better for even from a development side, people to deploy or develop in a modular manner rather than each one trying to develop a complete ERP on their own. That's my thought on it.
Okay, thank you. So Sujata, we have a few more minutes.
Yeah, a few questions. Then Mark or Thomas can add in a few points of what they think about this discussion. And then you have two questions on the Q&A as well as on chat, or you might have received a few questions.
Okay, so I will ask my last question to Mr. Sadagopan, and then we can move to Mark and Thomas. So again, Mr. Sadagopan, if we can, just your overall, forward-looking comments on, where India is today and what we need to do to leapfrog to our next stage of digital revolution.
Yes, India is in Amrit Kal now. In fact, our Modi ji says, don't plan for 3 years or 10 years. Plan for 30 years so that your children will be sustainable with this development, whatever you are doing. So ESG is one of the best tools to plan for long term, actually. So companies who are all thinking for 3 years, short-term gain, everything, if you plan for long term, like for example, even if oil is not there, what you are going to do? Can you produce oil on your own? You can't. So can you produce hydrogen and use as a fuel? Such alternates are going on. Initially, I thought that it is very complex and really confusing, the future, how it is. Now it is challenging, and now we are convinced that how to move on future by taking strategic initiatives. For that, these digital tools, how it is helping me by benchmarking the world. Though we can't benchmark what is not planned, like pandemic or Suez Canal fiasco or chip shortage, but we can at least plan, if not this, what is the backup? If not this, what is the backup? So in that way, we are planning, say, there are huge investment from Reliance, huge investment from Adani on the fuels, say on hydrogen, methanol, and other fuels. So the supply chain is going to change when you go to electric vehicle from our conventional vehicle. When you go to hydrogen fuel cell from our conventional, however, digital platform is the base. So what we are going to do is that's what I was telling again. You should have a physical product where around that the digital can move. Even up to digital money it can move, but you should have a physical product. So the future is not only 3 years, future is for 2047 for our developing nation. Future is for our triple times than the economy what we have. Maybe not $3 trillion, it must be $16 trillion. So we are progressing towards that. And these tools help us for agility actually. So because of agility, our sustainability will come. That is my thought. So don't plan immediately. It's not that bottom line today matters. It's a long term for 10 years, 20 years so that the earth can sustain. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I think, Thomas, I started with you, so I'll probably end with you with this final question. So in your opinion, for open text, where do you see the opportunities in India and what are your plans going forward?
Thanks, Vijay, and thanks everyone for a very informative session. So from an international perspective, I support open text from an international perspective, and we see India as a really important continent, particularly as someone already alluded to, with the shift of dependency on manufacturing and manufacturing supply chain in China being such a risk. We see things in the international press that's coming out of India around some of the things that the government are doing, and government, private sector and public sector is very important to partner with people like ourselves to almost to the point that was just made to look long term over the decades. Indian government's commitment to mobility, to mobility infrastructure. We have some automotive people on the call today. So it's an important market for us. We already have customer engagement in there. It has the potential to become a real manufacturing powerhouse, particularly from the point of view of digital, because it already has a very strong educational base and an IT development base within India as well. And I think it's just been demonstrated in today's session. the companies on the call have a passion for data and digitization in general. Still, for some companies, it's seen as a destiny. However, the companies understand the importance of data, but really struggle how to leverage it. And we can help with that. And go back to your previous question, you can't do these things in islands. In the traditional manufacturing, islands of working and throwing things all over the wall. So companies should take advantage of companies like us, take advantage of the previous experience and the insight we have from around the world, and also partner, because if we have different skills like managed service or treasury management or something like that, don't relearn it yourself. You don't have time. Take a managed service and use your resources to focus on the things that are really right for your business. And the things that are right for your business is how you can affect margin, how you can affect bottom line. And that goes back to, how do you avoid, proof of concept purgatory? You do that by small projects and being able to affect the bottom line and actually show value in the shop floor and also value in the supply chain. I think it's been a really good discussion today.
Mark, any final comments from you? Any thoughts that you would like to chime in here?
Yeah, I think it's been an incredibly good conversation, and thanks for everyone for staying on for the extra time. I guess I've got 3 takeaways based on some of the comments that were made during the course of the discussion. So firstly, we know that the traditional culture in manufacturing companies will certainly need to change to support future data strategies. Whatever that changes, I guess, will depend on the size of the business. Secondly, digitization is certainly becoming a way of life, not just in our personal lives or consumer lives, but certainly within companies. And also, companies will have to establish a program of digital inclusion, educating all employees of the benefits of digitization. And then finally, and it was a quote, I think, from one of the panelists, I can't remember who, so apologies, those companies that delay or avoid digitization will struggle to survive. So either a company adapts to survive, or they will lose market share and potentially reduce future business growth opportunities. And that's my summary.
And Mark, I think to that point, I think Krishna made the point. If you're going to work on a strategy for the next generation, and it's not going to be 3 to 5 years, it's going to be 20 to 30 years. You won't be able to do that without a digital strategy, because your business won't be competitive.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all our panel members for your very insightful thoughts. And Sujata, I'll hand it over to you. I think we have a couple of questions, Q&A for the Q&A session.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions here. Okay, if in the Q&A chat box, we have Bipin, who had asked about how are Indian OEMs tracing their supplier organization and thus manage the supply chain workforce on daily basis. I think we have only Mr. Sadagopan here from the Indian.
Sujata, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. How are Indian OEMs tracing their supplier organization and thus manage the supply chain workflows on a daily basis? Are they having any native platforms to support this model?
No, we are using SAP HANA for that. And we created customized versions, and up to tier 3, we have traceability, both on supplies as well as quality, because if it suddenly rejects, then you should have alternate. And even finance management also. For the same part number, if I have 3 suppliers, there are 3 different prices, because logistics is different. From different places it is coming. We have to manage productivity also. So we accept that if long distance, if it comes, logistics cost is high. So all these things are managed by SAP HANA as of now.
The other one is about when we talk about enabling digital supply chain, does that mean it does not mean that all decisions and actions which will be 100% automated. So supply chain professionals will still need to determine which decision in their global supply chain network can be made machine to machine versus which aspects still need to be handled by a human. Do you foresee a future where the entire process will be automated or digitalized? Thomas or Mark, if you can answer that.
Yeah, I think from our side, I mean, if you look at the theme of this particular panel around AI and machine learning, and Tom highlighted in his session around the need for companies, once they've adopted AI and machine learning, we will see supply chains evolve into autonomous supply networks. So supply chains or supply networks that are self-thinking, self-healing, self-correcting, and ultimately optimizing. So that, again, those companies that can adopt AI and machine learning today, in the future, we will see more autonomous capabilities coming in. And we see it on TV with all the sci-fi films and all the automation that takes place. And one day we'll see supply chains going in that direction as well. So I think we've got a really exciting future ahead of us, especially if more companies are adopting these disruptive technologies. And Tom, I don't know if you have any additions to that particular comment.
Yeah, I think there's a good point, but I mean, what we've talked about today around AI, IoT, the cloud. 5 years ago, these were disruptive technologies, and disruptive technologies have a habit, if they survive, to become transformational technologies. So right now we're really at the beginning of the journey, and we need to think about digital platforms as being assistants. They're not going to replace humans, but hopefully they're going to make the human part of the job more interesting, more efficient, more effective. And if we get to the land of science fiction and dark factories and totally autonomous, humans, we talk about AI, and the smartest AI object is still the human. So I think we're going to be around for a long time in the supply chain.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Mr. Sadhugopan, for joining us today. And thank you all our panel members. In the interest of time, I'll have to stop the questions here, but I'll be sending across all the questions that we received to every panel members who can answer by an email directly to the audience. Thank you once again. Happy holidays to everyone. Thank you for sharing your time.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mark. Thanks, Thomas. Thank you, Mr. Sadhugopan.